Okay, so I want you to imagine standing in the middle of this really quiet dirt road dairy farm.
Just a completely classic rural scene, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's an early morning in Virginia, maybe a few decades ago. You've got wooden barns, silos, cows grazing, and just absolute
It's
silence.
hard to picture now, but yeah.
Right. Because now I want you to imagine that exact same patch of dirt processing, like 70% of the entire world's internet traffic.
Which is just a staggering number to even wrap your head around.
It really is. Not just the country's traffic, I mean the whole world's.
Yeah.
Every email you send, every movie you stream, every single secure financial transaction you make, it's all zipping through these fiber optic cables buried right under where those cows used to stand.
It's kind of wild to think about.
So wild. And today, we're doing a deep dive into a place where the American Civil War is physically colliding with, well, the global cloud.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that this is one of the most drastic, hyper-accelerated geographical transformations in modern human history.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, you literally go from being the breadbasket of the revolution,
Right.
feeding actual armies with wheat,
Right.
to becoming the digital backbone of the 21st century.
And what we're going to do today is unpack this incredibly detailed, really beautifully observed stack of research notes that maps out this exact place, which is Loudoun County, Virginia.
Yeah, it's a really unique set of sources.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because we aren't just looking at, a traditional map. Traditional maps are comforting.
For sure. They give you the neat little borders.
Exactly. The thick red lines for highways, the blue curves for rivers, all those neat zones. But this research breaks the county down psychologically.
Right. It looks at the sub-personalities of the region.
Yes. It frames Loudoun not just as a physical location, but as this active daily collision of 5 invisible forces. Growth, wealth, identity, infrastructure, and preservation.
And, why does this matter to you, the person listening right now?
Good question.
You might have never even set foot in Northern Virginia, but Loudoun County is essentially a crystal ball. Oh, I love that analogy.
It really is. Every modern suburb, every growing town you live in or visit is experiencing these exact same 5 forces pulling against each other.
Right, like how a society balances its physical, historical roots with this massive, invisible digital infrastructure we all suddenly demand.
Exactly. By understanding the tension here, you're basically getting a masterclass, a blueprint of the forces shaping whatever town or city you currently live in.
It's the ultimate test case. So to really understand how a sleepy farming community becomes the center of the internet, we have to start with the invisible backbone.
We really do.
Let's look at the eastern and central parts of the county, places like Ashburn, Dulles, and Brambleton.
Eastern Corridor, yeah.
If I were standing in Ashburn in, say, 1975, what am I actually looking at?
Well, you were looking at a place literally called Farmwell.
Wait, it was actually called Farmwell?
Yes, that was the historical name for a large portion of Ashburn.
That is too perfect. Right. You're looking at these vast tracts of open land, dairy farms, maybe a few historic stone houses dating back to the 1800s.
So just totally agrarian.
Completely. It was a rural, very quiet existence, completely decoupled from the political intensity of Washington, D.C.
Which is what, only about 30 miles away?
Yeah, roughly 30 miles, but back then it felt like a different planet.
Right.
So the idea that this spot would become Data Center Alley, a landscape dominated by these massive, windowless, hyper-secure fortresses, it would have been totally unimaginable.
So how does that even happen? I get that suburbs expand, sure, but you don't just accidentally build the infrastructure for the global internet in a random pasture.
No, you definitely don't.
There has to be some kind of catalyst, right?
Right. And the catalyst was actually planted decades earlier, back in 1962.
Okay, what happened then?
That's when Washington Dulles International Airport opened.
Oh, the airport.
Yeah, and when Eero Saarinen designed Dulles with that sweeping, really futuristic curved roof, it was placed way out in the farmland of Loudoun and Fairfax counties.
I've seen pictures of that. It really stands out.
It does, and at the time, people thought it was a complete white elephant.
Right.
Oh yeah, they thought it was way too far from the city, but it was this massive bet on future transit.
Okay, I see where this is going. Because if you build a massive international airport, you have to build roads to get to it.
Exactly.
And if you build roads, well, you have to dig trenches.
Precisely. You don't just lay asphalt, right? You lay communication lines.
Oh, wow.
So the airport naturally became a node for government and military contractors. And then, when the internet began to commercialize in the late 80s and 90s, companies like AOL, America Online, they set up their headquarters right there in Dulles.
Oh, right, because they needed to lay massive amounts of fiber optic cable to support the early web.
Exactly. And what's the cheapest, easiest place to lay all that cable?
Along the existing right-of-ways, the trenches for the toll road and the airport.
You got it. Right along the Dulles Toll Road and the airport infrastructure.
Ah, so it's a snowball effect.
Yeah.
Once AOL lays the foundational fiber, the next tech company looks at the map and says, well, we could dig our own incredibly expensive trenches somewhere else, or we could just build our servers right next to AOL's existing fiber.
It's an economic principle called agglomeration.
Agglomeration, I like that word.
Yeah, once the initial infrastructure is there, it creates this gravitational pull.
Right.
So by the 2000s, as cloud computing just completely exploded, Ashburn became really the only logical place on the East Coast to build a data center. The fiber density was already there.
So the old dairy farms were sold off at astronomical premiums, and up went the windowless buildings.
From dairy farms to data farms, as the research notes say.
This is such a great phrase, and it completely changed the human landscape too, right? Because once you build the data centers, you need the engineers.
Yep, engineers, contractors, managers.
And all those people need places to live.
Right, which brings us to the planned community boom.
Right, places like Broadlands in the late 90s and Brambleton in the 2000s. The research actually refers to the vibe of this area as the new American suburb.
It really is. It's almost the architectural manifestation of the tech mindset.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about the people moving into these areas. Their entire professional lives revolve around building, maintaining, and debugging these incredibly complex digital systems.
Yeah, they're managing chaos on the global internet all day.
Exactly. So they want their physical environment to reflect that same level of predictability and order.
Oh, that makes total sense. You want to come home to a neighborhood where every single lawn is perfectly aligned.
You get the homeowners associations, the community pools, the walking trails that all connect in a perfect logical loop.
The research uses this brilliant phrase to describe the aesthetic. It says, every street's a pattern, every lawn aligned.
It's very intentional. And it was actually one of the first places in the country to have fiber internet, like the early Verizon Fios rollout.
Oh, really?
Yeah, wired directly into the residential construction. You had these homes being built with the explicit understanding that hyperconnectivity was just as essential as indoor plumbing.
Wow. But there is such a wild tension there, isn't there?
How so?
Well, you have this highly visible, incredibly curated, above-ground life. Kids playing travel across, parents walking golden doodles and Lululemon athleisure, the Saturday morning rush at Chick-fil-A.
Right, the ultimate safe, structured suburban dream.
Exactly, but then underneath the cul-de-sac, you literally have the pulsing high-voltage arteries of the global economy.
The contrast is striking. The research points out how surreal it is to see a standard suburban deer crossing sign right next to a monolithic, heavily guarded server farm.
It's such a weird mental image.
You have the natural ecology of Virginia, foxes, geese, deer, all just trying to navigate around these fortresses that literally never sleep.
That actually brings up something that has always puzzled me about these data centers. We call it the cloud, which sounds so light and fluffy.
Right, like it just floats out there.
Yeah, it sounds like it just exists in the ether.
Yeah.
But these buildings require an unbelievable amount of physical resources, right?
The energy requirements are just staggering.
Really? Like how much?
Well, a single large data center can consume as much electricity as a small city.
Wait, really? A whole city?
Yes. Because we aren't just talking about powering the servers, we are talking about massive industrial-scale cooling systems to keep those servers from literally melting themselves down.
Oh, of course. They generate so much heat.
And when you have 70% of the world's internet traffic funneling through one county, the draw on the regional power grid is just enormous.
Which means the invisible force of growth, that relentless pressure to expand, it's constantly colliding with the physical limits of the land.
Absolutely. How much power can the energy grid actually supply? How many acres can you pave over?
And the people living there, they must feel this pressure too.
Oh, they definitely do. The research captures this feeling of suburban transience really well.
Yeah, noting that people in the eastern part of the county sometimes feel like they have no roots in the soil, just fiber in the ground.
It's a very functional, almost transactional relationship with the environment.
Right.
People move in for a defense contract or a tech job, and maybe they move out 5 years later.
And because the infrastructure enabling all this wealth is largely invisible, buried underground or hidden behind the blank walls of data centers, the only time residents really interact with it is when it creates physical friction.
Which is traffic.
Traffic.
Exactly. It's the ultimate paradox of Loudoun County.
Right, you are living in the most digitally connected place on the planet.
Capable of communicating with Tokyo in literal milliseconds.
But physically, you are totally gridlocked on Route 28.
The research has a great line for that, actually. Stuck on 28 watching planes escape.
Wow. You're sitting in your car, surrounded by the physical friction of all this growth, while airplanes take off from Dulles right over your head.
And light speed data shoots right under your tires.
It sounds incredibly isolating, honestly.
It can be. But, that immense technological growth isn't just generating traffic.
Right.
It is generating an astronomical amount of money.
Yes. And that brings us to the second invisible force shaping the county, which is wealth.
The wealth engine.
I really want to dig into this because the sheer scale of the wealth here is, it's really hard to wrap your head around. Loudoun County consistently ranks as the #1 wealthiest county in the United States by median household income.
#1 in the whole country.
Above Silicon Valley, above Manhattan, above literally anywhere else.
And to put some actual numbers on that, the median household income easily clears the $150,000 mark.
Wow.
But remember what a median is.
Being just the middle point.
Exactly. A massive percentage of households in this county are earning well into the $200,000 to $500,000 range.
That is just an engine of immense, sustained affluence.
It really is.
But what I find fascinating is that this isn't like the flashy, chaotic wealth you see in pop culture.
No, definitely not.
Like, this isn't Miami where people are revving neon Lamborghinis down the street, and it's not LA with massive glass mansions hanging off cliffs.
Right. The wealth in Loudoun County is deeply structured.
Yeah.
The research characterizes it as controlled, polished, HOA-approved perfection.
It's the very definition of quiet luxury.
Exactly. But what makes it truly unique is that there is actually a geographic split in how that wealth manifests within the county.
Right. You have the new money in the east and old money in the west. Let's break that down.
Sure. So the new money in the east, this is places like Ashburn, Lansdowne, and the communities along the Potomac River, like River Creek.
Right. And this is the wealth generated by the invisible infrastructure we were just talking about.
Yes. It's the tech executives, the cloud computing pioneers, the high-level government consultants, and defense contractors.
So it's wealth that was generated rapidly, mostly over the last 20 to 30 years.
Exactly. And it manifests in these highly exclusive, gated communities.
Like Creighton Farms, for example.
Right, which features a Jack Nicklaus signature golf course, massive custom-built estates, and just an extreme level of privacy and security.
The aesthetic is incredibly polished, right?
Yeah.
The fashion leans toward tailored jackets, vineyard vines, luxury SUVs.
Very curated. But then you drive west toward the town of Middleburg, and the vibe changes completely.
Even though the bank accounts probably look very similar.
Oh, absolutely. But Middleburg represents the old money.
Right.
This is historical equestrian wealth. We are talking about massive estates spanning hundreds of acres.
A culture deeply tied to fox hunting, horse breeding, and Civil War-era legacy.
Exactly. The prestige here is very understated. It's less about having a newly built 10,000-square-foot house in a gated community, and more about owning a 200-year-old stone manor at the end of a long, unmarked gravel driveway.
The research puts it so perfectly. It says, money whispers here, but it never stops talking.
I love that line.
Because whether you were at a charity gala in Lansdowne or a horse show in Middleburg, there is a constant, subtle competition. It's status as a performance.
It's a highly curated environment. And when wealth is the baseline, when virtually everyone in your social circle is affluent, how do you differentiate yourself?
Right. How do you stand out?
It becomes an exercise in hyper-specific habitual consumption.
I really want to talk about how this impacts the kids growing up there, because the research zeroes in on this concept of the Loudoun bubble.
The bubble, yes.
If you grow up in an environment where everything is safe, pristine, and incredibly expensive, It alters your baseline reality.
It absolutely does.
There's this phenomenon mentioned in the sources called hadbucks.
Hadbucks, which is a portmanteau of half-day Starbucks.
Okay, explain this because I found it fascinating.
It basically describes the local high school culture where these teenagers who are driving luxury cars bought by their parents leave school early to make a daily, habitual Starbucks run.
It sounds so trivial on the surface.
It does sound trivial, but sociologically it's profound. For these teenagers, habitual luxury consumption becomes their core social identity.
It's the $18 salad lifestyle.
Well, exactly.
But I have to ask about something that really caught my eye in the research. There's this aesthetic in the wealthiest parts of the county that the notes describe as old barns, new bends.
Ah, yes. The aestheticization of labor.
Yes. You have these multimillionaires living on vast estates with beautiful rustic old barns. But they aren't farmers.
No, they're not at all.
So explain that, because I think this happens everywhere. Wealth gentrifies rural areas.
It definitely does. When an area transitions from agricultural to affluent, the physical remnants of the hard, grueling labor, the barns, the silos, the split rail fences, they are stripped of their original utility.
Right.
A barn is no longer a smelly, functional building for storing hay and housing livestock.
Instead, it's restored, painted, and transformed into a monument.
Exactly. It becomes a symbol that the owner appreciates the idea of a simpler, rustic past.
But it is entirely funded by the complex, high-stress, modern wealth of the present.
It's just incredible. So the barn is basically a luxury accessory.
It's literally a lawn ornament for a Mercedes-Benz.
Essentially, yes. As the research notes say, it's white fences, horses grazing, money in the land.
But the horse is a status symbol, not a work animal.
Right. It's a way of claiming connection to the earth without ever having to get your hands dirty.
It's wild. But here's the thing, right? All of this wealth, all of this polished HOA perfection and invisible infrastructure, none of it runs on its own.
No, it certainly doesn't.
While the country clubs and the data centers are highly visible in the narrative of the county, there is a massive workforce supporting it.
Yes.
And they tell a completely different, much more vibrant story about what this place actually is.
Which brings us perfectly to the third invisible force, which is identity.
Let's get into it.
Because if Loudoun County has a bundle of wealth, the area of Sterling and the corridor along Route 50 is the great multicultural melting pot that keeps the entire region functioning.
Let's talk about Sterling, because it really flips the stereotype of the monotonous American suburb right on its head.
It really does. Sterling is one of the most diverse communities in all of Northern Virginia.
Right. You have huge, vibrant South Asian, Latino, African, and Middle Eastern populations all living side by side.
And geographically, this diversity is anchored by Route 50, which is historically known as the John Mosby Highway.
Okay.
To really understand the force of identity here, you have to understand this road. The research frames Route 50 not just as a highway, but as a timeline.
Okay, let's actually visualize that. Let's physically drive it in our minds. If I'm on Route 50 heading east, where am I going?
If you drive east on Route 50, you are heading straight into the hyper-modern corporate and political intensity of Washington, D.C., Arlington, and the Pentagon.
So you're basically driving into the future.
Exactly.
And if I turn my car around and drive west...
If you drive west on Route 50, the landscape physically unwinds.
How?
Well, the glass office buildings fade into the massive suburban developments of Loudoun, and eventually the road narrows. It would hit the rolling hills, the horse farms, and the deeply entrenched Civil War history of towns like Aldie and Middleburg. You are driving into the past.
So Sterling and the central Route 50 corridor is the collision point.
It is the absolute center of the collision.
It's the present. And I love that the absolute best way to see this collision isn't in a museum, it's in the strip malls.
The culinary scene is the ultimate geographic buffet.
I'll bet.
You can drive down Route 28 or Route 50 and see this incredible testament to immigration and adaptation.
Like what kind of places?
Well, in a single, unassuming suburban shopping plaza, you might find an authentic Indian biryani spot, a family-owned Salvadoran pupuseria, a Korean BBQ joint, and an Ethiopian restaurant serving fresh injera.
And all of that sitting right there in the same parking lot as like Five Guys and a CVS.
Exactly. The research jokes that Sterling is if DoorDash was a physical location.
That is hilarious, but it's so true.
It is. These immigrant communities arrived often to work in the service industries, construction, or early tech waves, and they utilized these affordable commercial spaces to build community hubs.
And what emerges from this proximity is a fascinating culture of code switching, right?
Absolutely. Loudoun doesn't demand that residents fit into one singular identity box.
Right.
People here are constantly navigating between totally different cultural expectations on a daily basis.
You definitely see it in the fashion and the language. Like, a high school student might be wearing a Nike hoodie in standard American streetwear during the day, and then seamlessly switch into a traditional sari or kurta for an evening family event.
Or the way they speak. They might be speaking English with their friends, but peppering it with DMV slang.
Oh, right, like using the word jaunt for a thing or place.
Right, while mixing in Spanish, Hindi, or Arabic at home.
And the music reflects this fusion perfectly, too.
Oh, the music scene is incredible. The region is heavily influenced by the go-go music scene out of DC.
Those heavy, syncopated, percussive beats.
Exactly. But in Sterling, you might hear those go-go drums layered with a classical Indian tabla, or seamlessly mixed into Latin reggaeton. It is a true cultural synthesis.
But, we can't romanticize it too much because underneath that vibrant fusion is a pretty grueling shared reality.
The commute.
Yes. And this is something anyone who lives in a major metropolitan suburb can relate to.
Life on the Route 50 corridor revolves around motion. The morning grind heading east and the evening exhaustion heading west.
Beltway traffic is the great equalizer of the region.
Have you ever spent 2 hours a day in a car?
Oh, it's the worst.
Yeah.
It becomes this weird third space in your life.
Exactly. You aren't at work, you aren't at home, you are just suspended in transit.
And on this road, you have the high-level government intelligence workers, the data center engineers, and the service workers who clean the country clubs, all trapped in the exact same bottleneck.
The shared struggle really connects them. The research captures this shared space beautifully.
Yeah, noting that whether it's curry on one side, brisket on the other, the same road feeds every color.
But there is a real psychological toll to this constant motion.
Yeah, when you spend so much of your life just navigating traffic, code switching between cultures, and moving between the historical West and the technological East, you have to ask, where do you actually feel rooted?
It creates a deep feeling of transience, and it's amplified by the history of the road itself.
Because Route 50 is the John Mosby Highway,
Yeah,
named after the famous Confederate partisan ranger.
right. It cuts through land that saw intense, bloody skirmishes during the Civil War.
The historical weight of the land is just immense. You have the duality of past conflict and modern high-speed reality occupying the exact same geographic coordinates.
The research offers a haunting image for this. Ghosts ride the highway where Teslas glide.
Oh, wow. That imagery gives me chills.
It's powerful.
Just a guy in a $100,000 electric vehicle silently creeping through bumper-to-bumper traffic over a field where soldiers fought hand-to-hand a century and a half ago.
It's a heavy thought.
It really is. It makes you wonder, if you just keep driving west on that timeline, away from the data centers and the traffic, who is at the end of the road?
Well, if you drive west, you meet the people who are desperately trying to hit the brakes on all this change.
Ah.
Which brings us to the fourth invisible force. Preservation.
Let's dive into Western Loudoun, Leesburg, and what the research calls the harvest circuit, because this is where the county's identity crisis really comes to a head.
We have to start with Leesburg because it acts as the anchor and the ultimate crossroads.
Right.
Leesburg is not a new suburban development, right? It was founded in 1758.
Wow, that's old.
During the American Revolution, it was the administrative hub for the region's agricultural output. During the War of 1812, important U.S. government documents, including the Declaration of Independence, were secretly brought to the Leesburg area to hide them from the British.
That is wild. I didn't know that.
And during the Civil War, it was a constant battleground, changing hands between Union and Confederate forces dozens of times.
So the town is just steeped in history.
It is, and its geography tells the story of its current tension perfectly.
Because Leesburg sits right at the intersection of two major roads, Route 7 and Route 15.
Exactly. Route 7 runs east-west. It is the fast, multi-lane, modern commuter flow that brings the tech wealth, the HOAs, and the sprawl from Ashburn directly into Leesburg.
So Route 7 is basically the river of growth.
Right, and intersecting it is Route 15, which runs north-south.
And Route 15 is a two-lane, highly scenic, deeply historic road that winds past old farms and estates.
Route 7 is the future, Route 15 is the past, and Leesburg is where they crash into each other.
The research sums it up perfectly. 7 runs fast, 15 remembers.
That's a great way to put it. And as you move west of Leesburg, past that collision point, you enter the true rural heart of the county.
Towns like Bluemont, nestled right up against the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Or Lovettsville, which has deep German settlement roots and historic villages like Aldi.
And the atmosphere out here just shifts completely, right?
Oh, night and day. You completely lose the perfectly aligned HOA lawns, and you get rolling hills, gravel roads, and old stone walls.
The culture here isn't about flashy consumption. The research calls it quiet pride.
People value self-reliance. The uniform changes from vineyard vines and athleisure to practical Carhartt jackets, flannels, and worn-in boots.
But, and I think this is super vital to understand, this rural area isn't just passively sitting there.
No, not at all. The force of preservation is an active, ongoing battle.
Because residents are fighting tooth and nail against the invisible force of growth we talked about earlier.
Exactly. They are fighting at county board meetings against the rezoning of agricultural land for more data centers or sprawling subdivisions.
I mean, look at a place like the Quaker village of Waterford. It is practically frozen in amber from the 18th century.
Yeah, the people there aren't just preserving buildings. They believe that if they lose the land, they lose the soul of the county entirely.
But preserving the land requires economic viability. You cannot protect a farm if the farm bankrupts you.
That's the harsh reality. And the economic reality of the 21st century is that traditional farming, dairy cows, wheat, corn, is incredibly difficult to sustain in a region where the land itself is valued at such astronomical prices.
Right. If a developer comes along and offers you $10 million for your family's dairy farm to build a server farm, how do you say no unless the land can generate its own massive revenue?
Exactly. You really can't. And that economic pressure forced a massive cultural evolution.
Right.
The farms had to transition from purely agricultural production into an experience-based economy.
This is what the research calls the harvest circuit.
Yes. Loudoun County totally rebranded itself. It is now widely known as DC's wine country.
And it is booming. You have these old generational family plots that have been transformed into incredibly upscale wineries, craft breweries, boutique apple-picking orchards, and high-end pumpkin patches.
It is the ultimate weekend escape destination for the stressed-out professionals from DC and Eastern Loudoun.
The transition from function to leisure is profound.
Fall is the absolute peak of the harvest circuit.
Oh, I'm sure.
The landscape fills with hayrides, fire pits, and massive charcuterie boards. You'll hear live acoustic indie folk or bluegrass music drifting across the vineyards.
The aesthetic is so specific. It's that country chic, wide brim hats, expensive sundresses, pristine cowboy boots, walking on gravel.
It's the Zac Brown Band, or the Lumineers brought to life.
Totally. But I was reading the research, and there's a huge tension hidden inside this success story.
There really is. The tension revolves around authenticity versus performance.
Right. Is the harvest circuit genuine rural agriculture, or has it become a highly curated, sanitized theater for the wealthy?
That's the big question.
I have to say, reading through it, it feels a little bit like a theme park.
In what way?
Well, you have all these young professionals driving out in their Teslas for a sip-and-stroll weekend. They take a selfie in front of a rustic barrel, post it to Instagram with a filter, and then drive right back to their smart homes.
It is a performance. The research has this evocative line: fields that once fed armies now pour a vintage red.
It's the consumption of a rural experience without any of the rural hardship.
Exactly. But here is the profound, almost tragic irony of the 5 forces at play in Loudoun County.
Okay, let's hear it.
The tech wealth from the eastern part of the county, the data centers, the defense contracts, the HOAs, which threatens to pave over the farmland,
Yeah.
is the exact same wealth that funds the $20 a glass wineries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, let me make sure I'm following this. The only reason the farms survive the tech sprawl is because the tech sprawl comes out on the weekend and buys the wine.
Precisely. They are locked in a symbiotic embrace, even if they deeply resent each other.
That is fascinating.
Working class Loudoun, the invisible engine of agricultural and service labor, keeps the harvest circuit running flawlessly so that the affluent class can enjoy the aesthetic of a simpler time.
Because without the tech wealth, the farms would go bankrupt.
And without the farms, the tech wealth has no escape from the sprawl.
That is absolutely wild. Old Virginia and New Virginia resenting each other, but completely reliant on one another to survive.
It's a perfect encapsulation of the county.
But underneath all of this, underneath the old dirt of the West, the new fiber optic cables of the East, the traffic of Route 50, and the HOAs of Brambleton, there is a physical ancient force that ties the entire county together.
We cannot talk about Loudoun County without talking about the eternal witness.
The Potomac River.
Yes, the river isn't just a blue curve on a map marking the border between Virginia and Maryland. It is a living participant in this story.
Right. Historically, the Potomac is the anchor of the region. I mean, George Washington surveyed these lands along the river.
He did. And during the Civil War, it served as a crucial, violent border.
Right. In 1861, the Battle of Ball's Bluff was fought right on the steep cliffs overlooking the river near Leesburg. The water literally ran red with the conflict between North and South.
Quiet river, loud past. That's how the research describes it.
It's a great description.
And culturally, today, the river and its tributaries, like Goose Creek, represent that outdoor lifestyle that residents desperately want to protect.
Yeah, you have people kayaking on the weekends, fishing for smallmouth bass. You have the wildlife, the bald eagles, the great blue herons silently tracing the water. It feels ancient and completely untouched.
But the river is not just an aesthetic backdrop. It has a massive, vital modern utility.
Which ties everything together.
Yes. The Potomac River connects all 5 forces we've discussed today.
Let's map that out. So in the West, the river and its tributaries support the agricultural irrigation needed to keep the harvest circuit alive.
Right. And in the center, it provides the residential drinking water for the exploding suburban populations.
In the East, it cools the cloud.
Exactly. This is the ultimate bottleneck.
This blew my mind when I realized it.
Those massive data centers in Ashburn, the ones processing 70% of the world's internet traffic, they require millions of gallons of water to run their industrial cooling towers.
Millions of gallons.
Yes. Without the water from the Potomac River, the servers overheat and the global internet literally shuts down.
We started this deep dive talking about the invisible digital river of fiber optics.
Right.
But the actual physical dirt and mud Potomac River is the only reason the digital one functions. Nature is literally keeping the internet alive.
Which brings us to the existential question for Loudoun County and really for any modern society.
Yeah.
How does one natural, finite resource sustain both the 18th century agricultural dream of the West and the 21st century technological empire of the East simultaneously?
It's the ultimate balancing act.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying, really, because you can rezone land, you can build more windowless server farms, you can pave more toll roads, but you cannot manufacture a new river.
No, you can't. The water is the ultimate arbiter.
Right.
As the clash between environmental preservation and hypergrowth continues, the river will dictate the limits. The research captures this incredible duality beautifully. It says, herons trace the silence where the data hums.
What an image. You have this ancient, prehistoric-looking bird flying over a windowless building processing billions of global financial transactions, and both of them are completely reliant on the exact same water source.
The line that bridges the whole county is so perfect. From Goose Creek routes to server farms, the river cools both soil and storms.
It is the witness to the past, the enabler of the present, and the hard limit on the future.
Absolutely.
Wow, what an absolute journey this has been. I mean, we have driven from one end of this psychological map to the other.
It's a lot to process.
We've seen how growth paves the roads from dairy farms to fiber optic hubs. We've seen how infrastructure wires the ground beneath the perfect HOA lawns.
And we've seen how wealth builds the gates and curates the reality of the bubble.
We've seen how identity navigates the messy spaces in between, code switching and strip malls and commuting on the timeline. And we've seen how preservation fights to keep the soul of the land intact, turning history into a commodity just to survive the tide of change.
And this brings us back to you, the listener. Have you ever driven through your own neighborhood and wondered why that specific strip mall is there?
Or why an old barn sits empty next to a new subdivision?
The struggle between preserving local history and embracing global connectivity, the tension of rapid wealth, the search for identity in a transient world, this is the blueprint of the modern American experience.
Loudoun County is just experiencing it at an amplified, globally significant scale.
Exactly.
It really makes you look at the world around you differently. It's not just zones on a map. It's a living, breathing collision of forces. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over today, building on everything we've just unpacked.
Okay.
The next time you open an app on your phone, load a website, or send a secure message, I want you to think about where that data physically lives.
Right.
Because we use this term, the cloud. We imagine it up in the sky, weightless, invisible, and infinite. But the cloud isn't in the sky. It is a physical thing.
It really is.
It's likely sitting in a massive, windowless, heavily fortified building in Ashburn, Virginia, humming quietly on land that used to be a dairy farm. It is consuming massive amounts of electricity, and it is being cooled by water from a river where soldiers once fought and died.
Such a powerful reality.
We think of the internet as existing everywhere and nowhere, but it's actually buried in the dirt of Loudoun County. And someone, right now, is stuck in traffic right on top of it.
Definitely something to think about.
Something to think about. Thank you so much for bringing such a complex, fascinating source to the table for this deep dive. Until next time, keep looking beneath the surface.